Yes, I was asked to see them and her grandmother at the hospital. Nursing home placement was, I think, advised by one of the physicians. I cannot tell you exactly who that was because I just don't recall, and that was not an unusual occurrence for me to be.
That was normal protocol for you as
Yes.
the admission person and social worker for the health nursing home, for you to be dispatched to go and see the family of someone or someone who may be recommended to come to your
Yes.
facility by a doctor at some point.
Yes.
Objection to leading counsel's testifying.
I think it's sufficient for him to go ahead and ask that particular question. Her objection's overruled. You may ask, Mr.
Sorry, I thought I meant that. I didn't. If I didn't say it correctly, that's what I meant.
I think I was just repeating what you said. That's what you said, wasn't it?
That's what I thought I said.
Okay, thank you. And when you went to see Miss Rush and Miss Waits for the first time, do you have any specific memory of that? What can you tell us you remember?
I remember that Ms. Waits was on the stretcher in the emergency room, which is the bed down there, and I remember Ms. Rush was seated in a chair in the emergency room, and I sat down next to her to discuss this.
Okay.
And had a conversation with her at that point about placing Ms. Waits in the nursing home.
And again, why did you do that? You didn't just wake up one morning and decide you would go see her.
No, I couldn't have done that, and because it was recommended by a physician.
A doctor. And what do you remember telling Miss Rush or Miss Waits, either one, about the reason you were there and what was forthcoming?
Well, I spoke to Ms. Waits. I didn't really get any specific response from her other than a friendly smile, and that was pretty much it. But I told her why I was there. I spoke with Ms. Rush and explained to her that one of the physicians had recommended this, and so I had come and was going to explain details of admission or get information from her as to how she felt about this, and at that point she was opposed to it.
Miss Rush was opposed to it?
She was opposed to it.
Do you remember why, or what she said, if anything, about why she was opposed to it?
All I recall is that they had been caring for her at home and wished to continue doing so.
Okay. Did you meet any other family members of Miss Waits other than the Rushes that had been providing any care for her?
At any time or that day?
Both. You can start with
at
that
any
day.
time. Well, I dealt primarily with Ms. Rush. I later, I would speak to Mr. Rush when I would see him and their son, because he came in with them, whichever one of them came to the nursing home to visit. They would have their son, I believe his name is Lance,
Okay.
would be with them. And I always paid particular attention to that because we had one resident there, I think she's deceased now, but she was very confused and she was quite difficult to deal with. Often would try to bite or fight staff and so on and so forth. But for whatever reason, she was in love with this child. And when he would walk in the front door, she would be out there in that lobby every evening that I would happen to see him, waiting for that child to come in. And she was a totally different person. At any rate, on with the meeting other members of the family. At some point, I think I met another granddaughter. Briefly. I met a grandson. That was not a lengthy meeting at all, but that was not a pleasant meeting. at all.
And that grandson, would that have been one of Ann's siblings?
Siblings.
Her brother, maybe?
Is that Thomas?
Yes.
It was Thomas.
You met him, and it wasn't
He
pleasant.
came to my office. He came to see me.
Okay. Now, were any of these people providing care in Miss Waite's home for her other than Ann and Ben Rush?
I can't say who was doing what at home.
Okay.
You know, I'm just going to tell you what I recall,
Sure.
and I have had no notes accessible to me, none of my notes on this at
You're
all
telling us
at this
strictly what
point.
you remember.
That's right.
You're not telling us something you read in notes. You're not telling us something anybody's told you to tell, just what you recall. And,
I just swore I would. I mean,
sure. And at some point, that actually came true and happened where they had to put her into your facility, into the nursing home.
well, after our discussion that day, yes, at some point, and where I explained to them Medicare days after what's available after so many, you know, it's like a 3-day qualifying stay in a hospital makes you eligible for so many days of Medicare-covered nursing home stay.
Now, you said Miss Rush was opposed to putting Miss Waits
Yes.
in the nursing home. At some point, did she come back to you and say, "I've changed my mind, let's put her in there"?
Well, I mean, as we discussed it, yes.
Well,
Well, because the doctor had recommended this.
right. Did you play any role in persuading Miss Rush that it was time to do this?
Well, I mean, I guess no more than I would with anybody else. I myself was caring for my mother at home, and she was in a lot better shape than Ms. Waits was, and I know how difficult it was for me to do that. I did not tell her that, didn't tell Ms.
Right.
Rush that, but, I mean, it wasn't like I was, there wasn't any heavy-duty sales pitch or anything.
Well, I guess what I'm really
like that.
wanting to know is, did Miss Rush seem like she was just eager to get her committed to this nursing home?
No.
In fact, you said she was opposed. Then, once she was admitted to the nursing home, did you observe Miss Rush and Lance and Ben coming periodically to visit and help to care for Miss Rush?
I couldn't say that it was every single day because I wouldn't necessarily notice them if I was busy with something else. But at that point, like I said, there were I was trying to play 2 different roles there, and I didn't feel like that I could give enough attention to the residents as doing the social work if I was spending my time during the day working on admissions. So I often stayed in the evenings and would work with people on the social work aspect of my job. So I was there much later than most of the other regular daytime employees. And there are families who would be there in the evenings then too. I mean, there are plenty of them who can tell you they'd seen me there at that time.
Sure.
And probably plenty of them who could tell you that they had seen them there.
In the evenings?
Well, it would be after 5 or after 6 or something like that, and it would, whichever one came in would come with, and bring Lance with them and would bring her laundry.
Did the Rushes seem to take good care from your observations of Miss Waits?
Well, I can't say that I spent a lot of time when they were in the room with her, visiting her. I can just tell you that I saw them frequently and that they were doing her laundry. And
What
that
about before they came in? I mean, you saw them before, you saw Miss Rush and Miss Waits together before she came into the nursing home. Did you ever see Ann Rush deceiving her granny?
No.
Did you ever see her causing her to be scared or frightening her,
No.
intimidating her?
No. I mean, as I said, Ms. Waits was just as pleasant as she could be and smiling every time I saw her, really. I mean, after she was admitted to the nursing home as well as at the hospital.
And if Ann had deceived or intimidated her granny and you knew about it or you saw it, would you tell us about it?
Absolutely. I have, yes, I have.
You wouldn't come in here and say these things unless they were absolutely true.
No, I have had my own case in this courtroom where somebody who was like family has done that to myself and at that time my 94-year-old mother.
Exploited your mother.
Absolutely. And she recently passed away at 96. And
Wow.
the week she died, she was calling his name because she was still terrified that he was someplace in the facility where she was.
Was your mother intimidated by the person that exploited her?
Absolutely.
Did you ever see Miss Waits intimidated in that same way by Ann Rush?
I did not. I don't know if anybody else did or, now there was a period in there where I changed positions there and actually then was moved to a different building because I left from the admissions social work thing to marketing and PR. So I don't know what transpired after
Sure.
that. I don't, from the patient perspective, the family perspective, nor the
Sure, and
facility
we're not asking you to
perspective.
speculate on things you don't know, but given that you've had an experience with someone exploiting you and your mother, and you know this is a trial where they're charged with exploiting Miss Waits, right?
Yes.
And you wouldn't come in here and say you didn't see any intimidation or deception if you thought that she had
Well,
exploited her granny, would you?
now, first of all, I would, as I said, I swore I'd tell the truth, and I have done that. But also, if I were likely to try to sway anybody one way or the other, it would probably be the other way than what I'm saying, because I would want whoever exploited somebody to be responsible for that. But that's not the, I mean,
That's not
I'm
the case
telling you
here.
the truth.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Thurmond, for your time. I know you've been here a lot, waiting, and we've inconvenienced you, and I'm sorry for that.
That's fine.